So, Howie Hawkins, what do you think is standing in the way of the media's coverage of this issue?
Sheldon Silver, who represents the financial district, he won't let it move forward. There are some members of the assembly that would like to bring this forward. They've all been buttonholed by the labor unions and groups like the Fiscal Policy Institute and New Yorkers for Fiscal Fairness. But the way the legislature's set up, it's all going to go through the speaker. And he represents the financial district. Wallstreet owns the legislature. That's why it's not being considered. And I think the media, instead of focusing on real solutions to our fiscal crisis, I mean, it's fiscally irresponsible to give that money back. It's only 1/20th of 1% of a trade. Instead of focusing on that, they are treating, like the debate we had Monday night, like it's a review of American Idol. And they're focusing on who had the most outlandish costume and who had the craziest one-liners. And we have very serious problems facing the state. And one of them is this fiscal irresponsibility. I think that's why it's not being dealt with. I've brought this up with assembly members and state senators.
He used to blame you for the Bush election in 2000.
It's unbelievable.
I think we had like 4 fund drives based on that.
I told him after one skirmish with him, I said, Alan, at least don't keep repeating yourself. Listen to what I say.
Welcome back to the Capitol Press Room. You remember the song, It's Raining Men, I'm sure. Well, it's raining progressives here in the Capitol Press Room. We have Ralph Nader and Howie Hawkins joining me. It's great to see you both. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Consumer advocate and occasional presidential candidate Ralph Nader, also founder of Public Citizen and a columnist, joins us today with Howie, who's been on before several times. He's candidate for governor, Green Party. That it was not a very a debate packed with substance.
Yeah, but there was some substance in terms of what Howie is advancing, like keeping the stock transfer tax of $16 billion, and that's almost twice as much as the state deficit. But you also, in a negative way, you see how hollow some of the other candidates are, what they're evading. For example, Mr. Cuomo, Attorney General, he's gone all over the states, never mentioned stock transfer tax. So I mean, who in the world would collect $16 billion and electronically rebate it every day when people in New York State pay 8% sales tax for furniture and for refrigerators and clothing, and the sales tax on buying stocks is 0.
This is why Ralph Nader is considered very, very good at what he does. He is on message. Today he is here to talk about the stock transfer tax. I was going to get to it, I promise. We're having a conversation about something I don't think Ralph Nader thought we were going to have. But he's here along with Howie Hawkins, and one of your gripes against the media here in Albany are that we are not focusing on this stock transfer tax that would bring in $16 billion to the state's coffers. And of course, we have an almost $10 billion budget deficit looking ahead. So why is that?
Well, people in the media talk about the dysfunction in Albany, but they need to look in the mirror because, again, the debate coverage Monday night focused on the main narrative, Cuomo versus Palladino, and it was not what they offered on policy, but how did they handle themselves. And then they focused on the sideshows, because I think some of these third-party candidates are not really third parties. The Green Party
but they're on the ballot, Ralph Nader, who's
and I agree with that. If they get on the ballot and the voters saw that they're not serious. And if they really looked at it and do a little research, they'd find that one of those candidates, Kristen Davis, is a second front for Palladino folks. The people behind Palladino, Roger Stone, and he got Michael Caputo to be the campaign manager for Palladino. And I saw him come up to Kristen Davis before we went on and very sincerely say, I know you're going to do well, I hope you do good, and boost her confidence. And then in the aftermath, I hear Roger Stone say on WNYC, he liked what Cuomo said. They have an ideological agenda, because Cuomo came out, it wasn't even conservative. It was tax cuts are the solution to everything. Compare that to the Prime Minister of Britain, a conservative. They're now raising taxes on the rich, because that's a fiscally responsible thing to do because they have a deficit, and they're cutting military spending. That's the Kucinich wing of the Democratic Party over here. That's how far
we definitely, this country has moved more and more to the right, I think you would argue.
And the media doesn't put that in perspective. And on the stock transfer tax, it's fiscally responsible to keep that money. It's not, the rich will still be rich after the traders And the
Let's
people
talk-
making the trades pay for that, yet they ignore it. And
Can
they
you
tell
just
us,
step back and explain to people what the stock transfer tax is and why it's only something that is found in New York?
well, it's on the New York Stock Exchange. New York instituted it, started collecting it in 1915, and collected 100% of it until 1979. Then during the Kerry Cuomo administration, they phased it out to 81, where now it's rebated 100%. Now, my understanding is they keep collecting it because the bondholders want the money there if there is a real fiscal crisis.
We're not in a real fiscal crisis.
No, because they have the money and they give it back. And what they really want to do is protect tax cuts like that and the flattening of the income tax and the other tax breaks for wealthy. I mean, the whole tax system is Robin Hood in reverse. Poor people, working class people, middle class people pay a higher percentage of their income in state and local taxes than the wealthy do.
This, it says 100% rebate is currently allowed. However, a rebate is not allowed where the Department of Tax and Finance has determined the amount of tax due because of the failure of the taxpayer to pay the required tax. That's just about the individual corporation.
Yeah, well, that's basically said that the agency in Albany can determine under what conditions they could keep it. So it could either be done through an agency, but it'll be better done by legislation in the state legislature here in Albany.
And who's sponsoring this legislation, Howie?
Well, it was the Democrats originally, and it's part of this whole philosophy on both sides of the aisle that the way to get the economy moving is to give tax cuts to the wealthy. And they're supposed to invest, but they haven't been. They've been speculating. They've been rearranging paper entitlements to existing means of production, not creating new means of production and employment.
But who is sponsoring the legislation in the Assembly?
To rebate the stock
Yeah.
transfer tax, that law was passed in '81, and they've continued that policy since then.
I mean, to
end the
stop
rebate.
the rebate
Yeah.
of the stock transfer tax.
Well, I understand there are members that want to move it forward.
But there's nobody, is what I'm trying to get you
Well,
to say.
that's because Sheldon Silver, the speaker, everything has to go through him.
All right, we're
And-
going to come back to that in a moment, up to Sheldon Silver, the speaker, and why we don't have this. Howie Hawkins, Ralph Nader will be right back on the Capitol Press Room. We are back with Ralph Nader and Howie Hawkins, and we're talking about a variety of topics, but right now it's the stopping of the rebate of the stock transfer tax. It's such a complicated, dumb name. You know, somebody with marketing ability needs to change the name. But at any rate, now that we know what it is, Howie, you say that the reason why there is no one sponsoring this legislation in the Assembly is because the power of the Assembly lies with the leader, Sheldon Silver. And where is his district?
It's the financial district down there.
So what's the connection that you're making?
Well, he has no opponent. He represents that district, and that means Wallstreet's got control of the legislature.
Wallstreet is responsible, or was responsible, up until the recession, for 20% of the revenues that New York State takes in taxes and stuff. So that is sort of, you know, when you think about it, it's got this halo of light around it, and 20% revenue, like the Word of God. People don't like to have that kind of revenue limited in any way, so they're hesitant to tax it.
But I bet you they get more than 20% of the income of the state. This state has the most unequal distribution of income of any of the state in the union. And the concentration of income has increased over the last 3 decades since this tax was repealed. So I would be disappointed if they weren't providing 20% of the state's income. I think they should provide more because I know the overall tax structure is regressive. That means lower income people pay a higher percentage in all the taxes, state and local. We pay a 7, 8, or 9% sales tax on everything we buy. When somebody buys a stock, this transfer tax would have them pay about 1/20th of 1%.
That's the key
If you're a
thing.
long-term investor, it doesn't make any difference. If you're a speculator, it might deter you a bit, but we need real investment, not speculation.
See how he put his finger right on it. Today, as we speak, people are going into stores and small businesses collecting sales tax and other businesses for necessities of life, right? Clothing, furniture, all kinds of things. And the tax is 8%, okay? So The stock transfer tax is a fancy name for a sales tax. So today, right now, if somebody in Wall Street buys $100 million worth of Exxon stock, they pay no sales tax. You go into a store in Albany and you pay 8%. That is so grossly unfair. And top of it, the state collects $16 billion and then rebates it all. This is a level of subservience to giant corporations and Wall Street that I haven't seen anywhere in the country.
I just heard my next guest, Ken Adams, who's the CEO of the Business Council, fall down outside this room. He would say that New York is already one of the most taxed states in the nation, and that we already have people leaving because of high property taxes. How is it that you can ask them to pay another sales tax?
First of all, it's not a property tax, not an income tax. It's not a corporate income tax. It's a sales tax, 1/20th of 1%. That means for every dollar, it's 1/20th of a penny, right? And it's not paid by Wall Street. It's paid by the people who buy and sell stocks. Are they going to feel that? 1/20th.
These are the stockbrokers, basically.
No, the stockbrokers collect it and give it to the state, and the state sends it back to the stockbroker.
That's what I'm saying. The people who would feel any sort of removal of finances would be the stockbrokers, but they probably wouldn't because they're.
And they would pass it on to the people making the trades. And wealth is very concentrated. You said Wall Street accounts for 1/20th or 20% of income. I know nationally now that the top 1% of income earners take in almost 25% of income. And knowing that New York has a more concentrated income, and most of those people are down there on Wall Street, they're probably being undertaxed. The fact is the working class is overtaxed, and their taxes should be cut. Like the property tax should be cut by having a single payer system that takes Medicaid off the county budgets, which is 45% of their tax levy.
You always talk about the narrative, Howie, and the narrative in the media, and the narrative really over the last 10, 20 years in New York has been that the taxes are too high. I don't even think you ever hear politicians say, well, we have to raise taxes for any reason whatsoever.
I say we have to raise taxes on the rich. They've been taking tax cuts for 30 years, and we have to lower taxes on the working class. They don't talk about who pays and who doesn't. It's like Trump's janitors and Trump himself are the same people with the same income. That's the way they treat tax cuts. It's oversimplified, and you really got to decide, who are you taxing, and whether it's progressive or regressive.
All right. The assembled media of the New York State Capitol down at the Pressroom soon. Couple of the issues you're going to be talking about: the creation of a New York State public bank. Great. You're going to have to come back because we have like 3 seconds. I don't think you can explain it.
Credit for small business and consumers are not getting from Wall Street.
That was pretty good. I'm impressed.
Howie Hawkins, Green Party governor.
And Ralph Nader is upset. Thank you.